The Tom Sawyer Show on HBC TV 25 is brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Meet me at the levee for fabulous food and drinks at Jefferson Pub and Grill. Come check out their great nightly specials and limited time offer menu. Jefferson Pub and Grill. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Tom Sawyer Show here on HBC TV 25. I'm Justin Barrientos. Thank you for joining us. And Coach Sawyer, a very exciting game this weekend against Bemidji State. Goes down to basically the end of the game. How do you feel about those types of games that are, those nail-biter games that go down to one of the last plays of the game?
Well, one, it's really fun and really frustrating all at the same time because we had opportunities to put the game away earlier. They came back, and then we had a drive to win the game, score the touchdown. Then, of course, we block a field goal at the very end. So, all of that is exciting, but at the same time, it gives you, pretty much a heart attack for the whole 3 hours. But it was a great trip. Going up north, we had beautiful weather, and anytime you go to Lake Bemidji and it's 75 degrees, we'll take that because I've been there when it's horrible. But we really had a great trip overall. All
right. Well, I don't want to have you relive the heart attack, but we do have some highlights from this Bemidji State game. So let's take a look at the Warrior win against Bemidji State this past weekend.
Well, we're looking at, I think the first one here is a pass reception that, out to Alan May. And he really is having a monster year for us, not only at the receiving, but also the, catching the ball in the punt returns as well. But Carter McCauley knocked in a 43-yarder. He's really doing well. And this is Winona's own Eric Berth. He's got so much speed and power. We're just trying to mend those shoulders and at the same time get him to know all of what his assignments are. And he's going to be really dynamic and a good contrast to Paul, who you see here.
Yeah, and we'll be talking to Paul a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, he's showing some toughness. Obviously, he's a very tough kid, but he doesn't ever go out of bounds unless he has to, and he's really become a smart football player. And you see a couple defensive highlights here. We got Colin Corcoran and Mike Imperiali, two inside linebackers that are really athletic and are starting to show up at the right places. And you can see the kind of pressure that we put on this quarterback. And that's Mike Ferrante, a redshirt freshman kid from Chicago that really is starting to make some plays for us. And some of these guys seem a little undersized, but they're also very fast. So it's kind of what we're looking for in our defensive linemen. You're looking at, coming up soon here with another guy we've talked about a few times is, there's Paul again running, finding space, making people miss, and really doing a nice job. But Alan May again on the reception, but here's another look at Paul going to work. And this is the touchdown where he scores and, from the 10-yard line. Block kick at the end of the game. Obviously, we were going crazy on the sideline. It was a lot of fun. It was a low kick, but we also had a couple guys that got their hands on it. So it was really a lot of fun, and all we had to do really is put the ball down and get under 40 seconds, and the game was over.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the offense that you had this past week, because Josh Mikas really got back on track. A couple catches, almost 100 yards receiving.
Yeah, it is. He's starting to get healthy again, and we missed a couple really easy ones that were right there. So he's ready to really break out and have a big game. Alan May was himself again. Cam Johnson caught a long ball, and so that threesome is really starting to show up a little bit more. Jack and has got to connect with him a little bit better. I think we need to spend a little more quality time in practice on where they're going to be at the end of the run or the end of their routes, so we can get the ball on top of them. And we had a couple 3 balls that ended up out of bounds. So guys are running their routes in the wrong part of the field, spending their route running too close to the sideline. So Jack overthrows them, it goes out of bounds. So we got to keep the ball in the field and let the big playmakers do their thing.
Let's talk a little bit more about Carter McCauley. He said a 43-yard field goal in this game. I think he had a couple of field goals in this one. Mm-hmm. So now 3 of the top 10 longest field goals in Winona State history he's had in the past 2 games. Talk about, again, what kind of dimension that gives to your football team, knowing that even if you don't get the job done on offense, if you get close enough, you have someone that can knock down a field goal.
Well, I think the biggest thing is the fact that it's fun to hear like a linebacker kid run up to me and goes, "Coach, it's so nice to know that we know we can score points when we're in that neighborhood." And that you have to have 2 components, like we talked about last week, is you have to trust your defense. So if he does miss and it's midfield, you need to know that you're going to get a play on a short field. But at the same time, that confidence, it kind of oozes throughout the entire team. What we don't want to do is get used to it because we definitely want to score touchdowns. But nonetheless, that confidence, not only in Carter, but in the snap and the hold and all of that, and the guys up front really are starting to take a pride that has become a weapon for us now, and just instead of something we just do.
You mentioned Alan May had another big game. How much is he developing as a big threat receiver this year?
Well, he's a leader of our football team right now. He's an inspirational guy. I mean, he had a 48-yard punt return, where he made about 3-4 guys miss, and he's running down the sideline on 1 foot. I mean, he's just doing everything he can to inspire our football team, and he does it in practice every day. he does it 24/7, and he's just truly an inspiration to the rest. But he's a kid that has built himself into a premier wide receiver in this league.
You talked about the running game with Eric Berth and Paul Preston, and that it was going to be running back by committee probably during the season. I mean, are there specific roles, or are there certain down backs that you use?
Well, there can be. You know, if we get into heavy personnel and we get close to the goal line like we did with Eric Berth, and, you know, when he went into the end zone, although it got called back, but, you know, it's just, you know, 230 pounds versus, you know, 100 pounds or 190 pounds, excuse me, or 200 pounds is a big difference when you need inches. That's about the only situation that I really look at. Otherwise, all three guys that we're using right now can do all three things. You know, they can throw it, they can catch it, they can run it, they can do those things. Some better than others in certain parts, but otherwise we don't have any reservations really to put Paul in when we're passing it or throwing it to him or whatever. And the same with Elliott and Eric right now. So Paul got the majority of the carries. I told our running backs going into the game that if you get hot, you're staying in. And Paul got hot and he stayed in. And it's just the way it goes. And as you look around the leagues, you know, usually they have one guy and he's got 40 carries. And we want to last 11 games and we want to make sure that we're fresh in the fourth quarter. And it really worked out well because you saw in the last drive what Paul did late in the game.
Is there anybody that's been a surprise on offense this year so far?
Well, a kid right now by the name of Colin Valley. He's a redshirt freshman offensive lineman. He's been terrific, and he graded out the best this week of all the offensive linemen. Had his first start just a couple weeks ago, and now he's off and running, and he played fantastic this week. So he's probably the biggest surprise that we've seen on the offensive side.
Okay, let's go defense. Colin Corcoran, 13 tackles and an assist on a sack. I mean, what does he mean?
Yeah, he's all over the place. I mean, he's like a bad habit, man. That guy just everywhere. He runs guys down from the backside. He blitzes. He's batting balls down. He's, you know, making big plays in open space. I mean, he's a premier linebacker, and he doesn't look it. He looks like a defensive end, and he's long, got these long arms, but he is an aggressive, physical football player and knows what he's doing. And so there, I mean, he's really become, you know, truly a weapon where he's over 10 tackles a game in the first 3 games.
Same question on defense. Is there anybody that's been a surprise through the first couple of games?
You know, I really think that one kid that's starting to show up quite a bit is Nakai Poyser. He's an outside linebacker, another redshirt freshman kid, playing opposite of Jarrett Wood, and he's kind of redirecting some routes right now. He's made a couple big plays. Probably played a little better in Minot than he did at Bemidji, but nonetheless, here's a real physical kid at 240 pounds that can smash you. And he's starting to understand what he's doing and knows the concepts, and he's making plays all over the field. So he's another kid that's really starting to show up, and you'll see him on Saturday.
All right, well, we'll see also one of the main players on offense that we talked about in this first segment, Paul Preston. He's going to be joining us as our guest on the Tom Sawyer Show right after this. The Tom Sawyer Show on HBC TV 25 is brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Meet me at the levee for fabulous food and drinks at Jefferson Pub and Grill. Come check out their great nightly specials and limited time offer menu. Jefferson Pub and Grill.
Join HBC Sports' Extra Point one-camera coverage of high school football and soccer throughout the fall, presented by Lewiston Auto. In addition to our Football Night Crew broadcasts, Extra Point will bring you 8 games from the gridiron and 9 games from the pitch. For the full slate of games, simply visit hbci.com/sports to find out when your team will be on the field. That's Extra Point coverage of HBC Sports presented by Lewiston Auto, all fall, only on TV 25.
This is HBC Job Finder. Masterson Staffing has immediate openings in Winona, Stockton, and Wabasha for first, second, and third shifts. Positions as sewing and mending techs, machine relief operators, and general production labor available. Pay up to $12.50 an hour. Paid weekly with benefits. Call 507-252-8481 for detail. Email your resume to rochester@mastersonstaffing.com. For a full description, go to jobs.hbci.com. Get an inside look at the Winona State football program with the Tom Sawyer Show on TV 25. Brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Host Justin Barrientos sits down with the Warriors head coach each week to break down last week's game and to look ahead at WSU's next opponent, as well as chat with Winona State players. Tune in at 4:30 p.m. on Thursdays, 6 p.m. on Fridays, 7 a.m. on Saturdays, and before every Warrior home game for the Tom Sawyer Show on HBC. Brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill.
And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show here on HBC TV 25. And Coach, we're going to talk offense with one of your running backs.
Yeah, obviously Paul Preston is here today, and Paul, I appreciate you coming down. And you know, obviously a running back for us, kick return specialist, those kind of things. But one of the most dynamic players we've had here in a long time. So, first question I have for you, Paul, was what did it feel like getting on that bus when you know you have 7 hours after a win?
Oh, it was awesome. You know, I'll tell you, it's 10 times better than going on the bus after a loss. So we were all happy and fired up. You know, you almost like can't sleep, but you know, 5 hours goes by and you're passed out. So.
You know, out on the field, and I'll just go back kind of backwards, but you know, we got that last drive and we're down and we got to put the ball in the end zone, and we really put the ball on your shoulders and with that offensive line. What does that feel like when you know they're going to you and you know this is the drive to win it? What kind of goes through your mind?
No, it was awesome. Like everything almost came together. The offensive line started figuring it out. In the perfect time, the last drive of the game, we needed that to win the game. And I think we found a couple plays that were really working, and we were able to get some yards after yards, and you know, it just worked out for us.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about being a kick returner or a punt returner too. Obviously, you're not scared of any contact. At running back, you get that all the time. But on kick returns and punt returns, people are going full speed right at you. I mean, what's that like?
Yeah, it's not that much different. There's obviously more room for them to be running at you, but you know, you trust your guys blocking for you, and it's almost the same thing as running back.
You know, up at St. Cloud a couple years ago, we had a certain play, and since we're playing St. Cloud this week, it kind of reminds me of a play that, you know, we had a special play and for Paul, and he took it down, and then he was just short, got ran down at the 1 yard line. What have you done differently now that over the last couple of years to make sure that you get all the way to the end zone this time?
You know, ever since that play, he's always been telling me to increase my stride length by just, you know, a couple inches, and I would have made it. So ever since then, I've been working on it, trying to, you know, get up to speed a little bit more, and it seemed to have worked out.
You know, we talk about the fun we have in our running backs room, and you know, I get to work with the running backs every day. So what's the dynamic in that room now that you're the old guy in the room?
You know, it's different, but it's fun. You know, you're the one like answering questions now, and you know, making sure all the young guys are there on time and all that. And if they have any questions, they come to you now instead of you going to someone. But you know, it's enjoyable and it's fun, and I like it. So.
Okay.
Coach Sawyer and I talked about this a little bit earlier this season about the running back by committee. Now, last year you were kind of thrown into the lead running back role, and this year you have Elliot Cox and you have Eric Berth and you have yourself and some others as well. What's the difference between this year and last year as far as workload for you?
I mean, this past game I think it was 21 carries, so it was kind of like last year, but at the same time, it's nice knowing that you have a couple fresh guys on the sidelines if you need them, or you know you're going to be fresh in the fourth quarter instead of, you know, tired after 20 carries, and you just got to keep, you know, bringing the load, so or carrying the load. So it's nice knowing you have a couple guys there to, you know, rest up your legs.
You know, one of the things that you know people always talk about, and it's something you've been talking about your whole life, just like Justin and I, is, you know, we're vertically challenged, and when you have that, you know, I know it's something that drives you, but in the game of football, it really doesn't matter. And you know, tell us, you know, what it's meant to you to be able to accomplish as much as you have at the Division II level.
It's awesome. You know, when I first started getting recruited here, I like visualized what I could do here. I saw myself. I thought I could start, and you know, here I am a couple of years later starting on the team. So it's just an awesome experience. You know, being one of the shortest guys on the team, you get looks all the time like, is this guy really the starting running back? And then, you know, you just got to go out and prove it to them every game.
Dump 100 yards on them, and they quit talking.
Exactly, yeah.
I want to go back to your high school days. I found an article that talked about you as a profile that said that you had a pregame meal that you had every game before high school. Has that carried over to college?
Somewhat. I do it more for home games. I believe it was the Subway sandwich, right? Yeah, I do it more for home games because when we're on the away games, we got meals already there for us. So home games usually get the foot-long ham, cheese, lettuce, mayo, and I'm good to go. So.
How'd you get into that to have that every game?
I don't know. I think like sophomore, junior year, my dad just started bringing them to me, and ever since then, you know, it started getting into a routine and a little superstitious. So I just kept going with it, kept rolling with it.
You got Portillo's down the street.
Yeah, but you don't want to be eating that greasy food right before a game.
Yes, so. You do, Paul. One of the last question I have for you, Paul, is you know, going into homecoming week, what does that mean to you and to our football team as obviously one of the inspirational leaders on our team? What do we need to do this week to really inspire the homecoming crowd?
I think, you know, homecoming week is always fun. Everyone's fired up and everyone's ready to go. You don't need you don't need to find any motivation. It's already there. Everyone's, like I said, fired up, and we just need to do our jobs. Everyone has to do their job, and I think we should be all right.
Okay.
I have one more just kind of silly question, although it's a big deal to some people, and that's the number that you wear. Because you were 34 all throughout your high school career.
Yep.
You wore 28 the last couple of seasons. You switched to 34 And now you're 29.
Yeah.
What's with all the bouncing
mess.
around? I mean, did you try to get back to 34? And
I tried to get 34, but something happened with the jerseys. So I'm with 29 right now, and I'm all right with that. But next year you'll probably see me switching around again. So we'll see.
The thing with the jersey is that last year, 34, and for the last few years, it was Ryan Gertz's number, and he went and played or was elected to the All-State Good Hands team. So he wore that jersey in that game down there in the All-Star game and at the Sugar Bowl. So it's got a huge Sugar Bowl logo on it. So I wanted to make sure that he could retain that and keep that. So I gave him that jersey, and the replacement didn't come in. So Paul's out of luck. Maybe next year when he's a senior, we'll start paying attention to him.
All right, sounds good. Well,
Hopefully.
We'll bring you back next year and we can talk all about that.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Paul, for joining
Thank
us
you.
for this segment. We're going to take a break here on the Tom Sawyer Show. When we come back, Jeff Brown from the defense will join us right here on TV 25. The Tom Sawyer Show on HBC TV 25 is brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Meet me at the levee for fabulous food and drinks at Jefferson Pub and Grill. Come check out their great nightly specials and limited time offer menu. Jefferson Pub and Grill.
HBC Sports is your exclusive home for Winona State soccer and volleyball for the 2015 season. Whether you prefer spikes and sets on the court or goals and saves on the pitch, if it's happening with Warriors volleyball or soccer, HBC has you covered. For the full broadcast schedule, simply visit hbci.com/sports to find out when each match will be featured live. That's Winona State soccer and volleyball all season long, only on TV 25.
Tune in for the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 as a panel of local sports journalists tackle the hottest topics on everything from local high school and collegiate sports to regional discussion about the Twins, Brewers, Vikings, and Packers. With the Power Play Fantasy Football Challenge to the Rant of the Week and NFL Pick'em, the Sports Buzz is fast-paced and sure to entertain. That's new episodes of the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 with replays only on HBC TV 25. And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show here on HBC TV 25. And Coach Sawyer, going to defense now.
Yeah, we got one of our captains this year. Jeffrey Brown is here and senior for us, and I believe that he played every snap in the game last week. So truly a guy that grinds it out for us. But from the moment he walked on our campus a couple years ago, we knew we had great leadership, and he shows that every day. So you want to start this one up?
Absolutely. Let's talk about playing every snap in a game. I mean, that's something that you usually see in high school, but when you get to the college level, that's kind of a rarity. What is that like to have to play every snap in a game?
You try not to think about it. It's tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. But our coach Barton, my D-line coach, he does a great job of conditioning us and getting us ready for that, and seeing an up-tempo offense. So the extra running we do after practice, the high pace goal team that we go through, it gets us ready for that. So it's tough, but we get through it.
All right.
You know, in the game, obviously our defense is really starting to play well. What do you think? We have a lot of different new faces, and what do you think has been something that's really been positive for the entire defensive unit?
Just the culture of playing for one another and not necessarily going for individual stats, is playing for the guy next to you. So everybody has the same goal, getting a 3 and out, and it doesn't matter if it's a pick or 2 sacks, TFL. As long as we get that one common goal, we've won as a unit. So it's freed us up, and everybody's not thinking, and they're just playing. So it's just a race, first man to the ball carrier, and we just party when we get there. So
yeah, we always talk about the celebration at the quarterback, and you've gotten your hands on quite a few here in 3 games, and it's not always a sack, but it's also the rush and the pressures. When you're actually grabbing the cloth of the quarterback, Jeff, what does that really feel like?
It's relieving. Like, you finally get home. We go through all these pass rushing drills. It's a 3-down front, so we're 1 less man down, but we've been doing it. Like, we've been building a great wall, getting there, so when we get there, we make them feel it, and it's a good feeling.
I want to go back to your high school days. You were a multi-sport athlete in high school, and you were a really good wrestler. I believe your senior year, 45 wins. Did you get to the state tournament in your senior year?
Yeah, I was blessed enough to win it.
You did win, okay.
Year, yeah. So that was a great experience for me, and I started as a freshman, so that was also cool to pick it up so early and just kind of be natural at it. So that's one of those sports you get in what you put out. So it was good to see that come about.
Now, you, I think in the articles that I read, you're kind of like an underdog. I mean, no one really maybe took you seriously as a wrestler. I don't know how that's possible, but how did you like that role as kind of coming in under the radar?
It was good. We had a good game plan, me and my coaches, and it worked in our favor because they're like, nobody knows about you, so you just keep doing what you've been doing, taking it a match at a time, and it worked out in the end. And we stuck to our game plan, and I was prepared. And wrestling's one of those things where, like, accolades really matter in terms of ranking. So starting as a freshman, like some of these guys have been wrestling varsity since their sophomore or junior year. So 2 years of varsity experience versus some of their 3 or 4 is just uncommon. So it worked out for me though. I stuck to, and it's one of those sports where you get taught thousands of moves, but you can pick what you're good at. My coach always said 2 takedowns, 2 stand-ups, and 2 rides. So I found 2 that I was good at in each section and just perfected those as best I could.
Jeffrey, how do you think that that's really helped you as a collegiate football player now, using those same skills that you learned as a wrestler? How does that come into play now as a defensive lineman?
It's really pivotal. That was a big influence in me becoming a wrestler. A lot of my previous coaches, they told me like, a lot of good football players were wrestlers. And at first I thought they were talking like WWE wrestling. I'm like, that stuff's not, yeah, I'm like, that stuff's not real. I'm like, that's not real. Like, I don't want to wrestle. Like, that's just, but then once I did my research and found out the real wrestling, it helps. And like hand-to-hand combat in the trenches, being able to feel like pressure, it's hand in hand. Like I recommend it for any high school level or middle school kids that want to play football. I advise them to wrestle. Good leverage, good hips, and just being mentally tough. Because I always say wrestling practices are harder than football practices. Like 10 times the running, 10 times the heat. It's always hot. You're in like a boiler room type of room, so. It helped me though. It trained me mentally to be tough.
I think your wrestling actually helped you in the recruiting process because you first went to Miami. Talk about going to a big D1 school like Miami. What was that like?
Coming out of Evanston, Illinois, like we have a lot of talent in our town, and we had a couple guys, sign major to major D1 programs like the previous 2 or 3 years, but. It just kind of came down to connections as well. Like I went to a couple combines and stuff. So, and my coach, he had Mike Brazawa. He was a real successful coach in Illinois. When he was in 6A, he coached at a high school by the name of Driscoll Catholic, and they won like numerous state championships in a row. So just passing tape on to different people, and they liked what they saw. And I went out on a visit, and it was just peaches from there. It was a good time. So it was good because it's kind of like a gateway, to show other kids that they can do it too. As long as you put in the work, you don't have to be somebody's son, or you don't have to be some super big guy. Just like I always kind of look at myself as like in between, like not small, not super big, but just like in between. And it's funny. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but it's a guy named Danny Sabatello. He wrestles at Purdue University, and he went to Stevenson. He won 2 high school state championships. But when he got to college, he posted a status on Facebook, and he was like, once you grow and you get as big as you're gonna get, he's like, it's not really a difference. Like whatever size you grow to be, the people in your weight class aren't really that much bigger than you. They aren't really that much smaller than you. Like everybody's like in the middle, and who works the hardest reaps the best benefits. And I always keep that in the back of my mind when I'm like competing or doing whatever. It's like, we're all the same size. It's just who's going to have the most determined grit to get the job done. So,
now do you see why he leads our football team?
Absolutely, yeah. Great captain to have on your team.
Absolutely.
All right, we're out of time, but thank you for joining us here on the Tom Sawyer Show this week.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, and we'll be back here on the Tom Sawyer Show to take a look at the homecoming game this weekend against St. Cloud State. The Tom Sawyer Show on HBC TV 25 is brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Meet me at the levee for fabulous food and drinks at Jefferson Pub and Grill. Come check out their great nightly specials and limited time offer menu. Jefferson Pub and Grill.
This is HBC Job Finder. Masterson Staffing has immediate openings in Winona, Stockton, and Wabasha for first, second, and third shifts. Positions as sewing and mending techs, machine relief operators, and general production labor available. Pay up to $12.50 an hour. Paid weekly with benefits. Call 507-252-8481 for detail. Email your resume to rochester@mastersonstaffing.com. For a full description, go to jobs.hbci.com.
Join HBC Sports' Extra Point one-camera coverage of high school football and soccer throughout the fall, presented by Lewiston Auto. In addition to our Football Night Crew broadcasts, Extra Point will bring you 8 games from the gridiron and 9 games from the pitch. For the full slate of games, simply visit hbci.com/sports to find out when your team will be on the field. That's Extra Point coverage of HBC Sports presented by Lewiston Auto, all fall, only on TV 25.
And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show here on TV 25. We kind of had a little bit of breaking news as Jeff was leaving. He's trying to influence you on what jerseys you guys are going to wear on Saturday. So whose choice is that, and how many different jerseys do you have?
Well, we have 3 different jerseys and 3 different kinds of pants. So we got a whole bunch of combinations. But we've been pretty traditional on homecoming. He's talking about maybe going gray pants with white, or our black jerseys, which are really, really cool. But it's usually the seniors. I let them pick the combinations. You have white socks, black socks, and all the different combinations. But usually I'm pretty steadfast on homecoming, and people like to see purple. Although we got a lot of purple in our stadium, and so I just challenged them. I said maybe we'll see how the work week goes, and if it's something the kids are passionate about, and in today's society, and always kids, it's important to them. Yeah. And if it's something that they want to do, and the captains bring it to me, I'll do it.
All right, sounds good. All right, Saturday it's homecoming. Yeah. Now, obviously, that means a lot to you and me as being graduates of Winona State. How much does that really mean to the kids, to the players that you have?
Well, I think that they hear so much about it, and I make it a really strong point in our program that the program is much bigger than they are. And the program includes our alumni base, and like you said, with you and I being alumni and playing on that same field, I continue to talk to them about the importance of that, and the importance of it. The longer you are, the older you are, the more important it becomes. It's not that important to an 18-year-old kid. A kid like Jeffrey that's on his last time, or Alan May, and even Paul Preston, those kids are now invested in the program. It becomes more and more important, and that's something that's part of our legacy here. The things that we teach is to honor those before you and take care of those who are taking care of you, which is the sponsors and the people with scholarships and all those. And that's what we get to celebrate, along with, we even have 3 football players going to the Hall of Fame. Oh, so sure. You talk about that, and all of a sudden it becomes very important, and I want to make sure our kids know and understand that. Okay, the opponent is St. Cloud State. It's going to be a later start this week at 2:30, I believe, start because of homecoming. They're 1-2. But they had a real close game against Southwest Minnesota State this past weekend. What do you know about them, and what do they bring to the table? Well, they still bring an active defense. They're a 3-4 defense, so they're similar to ours. They are pressuring more than they have in the past, and play a lot of man-to-man cover. So that's something that's always challenged, or is a challenge. And offensively, we all remember the Clap Hockey kid that was here a couple years ago, one of the best quarterbacks to ever come through the conference. They've changed a little bit there, although the running back is still there, and a couple of those guys remaining from those really good teams they had just a couple years ago. But they're not, they're struggling a little bit to put all their team together, and like what we're doing is building. So 1 and 2 is don't get misguided by that. They're a good football team, good program. Coach Underwood does a nice job of them, so they'll be ready to go and come down here into our environment. But so will we. They seem to be a pass-first offense. I know last week Jamison Parsons had 180 yards receiving against Southwest Minnesota State, and they still lost. Is that something that you're going to kind of be looking for this week? Yeah, absolutely. But we've seen guys throwing the ball for 3 weeks, and except for maybe Moorhead that first week when Jake Hodge was running just as much as he was throwing it. But we saw a lot of balls going up last week. We challenged a bunch of them, and we stayed away from that big, huge play. And that's what you hope for. You hope to just contain it and get enough pressures, like Jeff's talking about. Introduce yourself to that quarterback as many times as you can, and then late in the game, if that pressure is getting to him, then all of a sudden he might make a mistake and get that interception or a fumble or something, and it can open the game up. All right, quickly, last question. How do you attack their defense then? Well, we just got to be sound in our assignment. We got to still continue to work on running the football, and how we finished the game last week was a good place to start for this week, is running the football when you have to. Well, this game we have to the whole game. And along with that, the complement with Josh Mikas and Alan May and Cameron Johnson and Jack Nelson. Let them do their thing. But we can't be one-dimensional. We have to be two-dimensional. And we have to win the special teams game as well. And that's something that really hurt St. Cloud the last couple of weeks, and it's something that we hope to take advantage of as well.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this week, and hopefully we'll talk about a win next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on the Tom Sawyer Show. We'll see you next week here on TV 25.